So All-Star Weekend was these past couple of days, Danny, and I know you have a couple interesting takes that you want to like really jump right into. So what were your thoughts on All-Star Weekend overall? Like, does it need fixed? Does it need saving? Like, what are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I think Kobe Bryant said it best a few years ago when he was talking about the All-Star game. He said there's not really a competitive feel to it anymore, and he doesn't really know what you could add to it to make it more competitive. I kind of agree with what Kobe said. There's nothing more you can do to make it competitive. They tried incentives, and that was kind of the best one a few years ago. Whenever it was like the race to like 169
the Elam ending.
Yeah, that was like the best All-Star game, I thought. This year it was pretty good, despite the fact that the East scored 211 points, which is the most points I think ever scored in like a professional basketball game, if you can call that a professional game. But it's the most points scored in an All-Star game ever. The over-under was set at I think like 360 points.
353.
Like 359, and they crushed it. It was like 396 or something. The end was.
Yeah, like 370 or something like that.
It was around 290 for the All-Star total, which is absolutely crazy. I did enjoy the All-Star game this year, just seeing the best players in the world just be able to throw up balls from half court and go in, like Damian Lillard. Like Dame's just throwing up balls from half court and it's going in. LeBron's windmilling. That's what I like to see. I mean, if you kind of go into it knowing that that's what we're going to get from it, it makes it more fun. Obviously we're not going to get a pickup game where we're playing defense, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes the guys start trying, but nonetheless, I think that straight up All-Star game is the least of the problems of All-Star Weekend. I think the biggest one is still the dunk contest. I mean, Mac McClung won it again this year, back to back.
Hey, come on.
Mac McClung's nice, but listen, you got to get some All-Stars.
I think it's the issue is like don't. Okay. First of all, I think the issue with the dunk contest is like dunks just aren't that. I mean, they've done all the dunks that they can do. Like, there's really not much else they can really get into. And as for the All-Star game itself, like, anytime LeBron James is on the court, like, I'm be excited about that. Like, don't get it twisted, just watching him play. But the thing is like, I thought they had figured it out a couple years ago when they did the Elam ending in 2020. And I know 2021 wasn't that close, but in 2022, those were two close games that came down to the wire. So I'm wondering, like, that they kind of figured it out in a sense, but now, like, we're going backwards. In the first year that they go back to the East-West, no Elam ending, we start having these discussions about, like, nobody's trying, there's no defense. I mean, bro, like 200 points in a game, like, it's not even like, and some people will say, like, they like seeing people shoot from half court, all like that, but I'd rather watch them play in tight. At that point, just play one game to like 24 points. Bring 10 people, the 5 best players from both conferences, and play a game of 21. No blood, no foul type, do that.
I think
that would be more entertaining.
If we saw, the top, you could get like the top 6 voted people. And then a 3-on-3 tournament, a draft style,
That's what they do in the NHL.
Yeah, like exactly like that. That would be way more fun because I think guys would be competing against each other actually. 3-on-3, they would try and make a prize, a trophy.
And they need to put money. They need to put money up because if the players have shown anything, especially in the NBA, like if there's one thing they care about making money. Like so they need to put money up. There needs to be a better prize. As for like the dunk contest though, like I was saying, like they're kind of out of dunks to do.
I mean, I don't agree with that necessarily. There's
What new dunks can they
There's
do?
always something you can do, It happens every year. We saw a bunch of new dunks this year, but it's just the creativity and the people doing it. Like Jaylen Brown should not be in the dunk contest.
Bro, jumping over Castaneta. He was getting flamed for that.
Castanet's like 5 foot tall on a good day, and he was sitting down. And Jaylen Brown missed the first dunk. I mean,
did he really?
Yeah, he missed the first one that he did over Kai, and did the second one that went in. But I mean, I miss the days with Aaron Gordon, Zach LaVine. I mean, that has been said, millions of times. But I think the only way to make the dunk contest good again is to have the fans vote on who's in, and then I think make it a little bit more mandatory. But I think it all stems from, obviously you're not going to listen. I think LeBron never doing the dunk contest really set a precedent for guys that want to be superstars in this league. Oh, if LeBron's not doing it, I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? So I think if LeBron ever stepped up earlier on in his career, obviously LeBron's one of the greatest in-game dunkers of all time with, his power and how he, dunks all the time over people. Him not doing the dunk contest set a huge precedent for stars to not do it. So around 2018 was the year the dunk contest really fell off.
Yeah.
After Aaron Gordon said he's not doing it anymore.
Uh-huh.
You know, when the best dunkers in the game don't want to do the dunk contest, something's wrong. You know, we have the best three-point shooters in the game doing the three-point contest.
Yeah.
You know, you have Curry, you have Trae Young, you have Dame Lillard who won it back-to-back. I mean, you have the best guys doing it.
Yeah.
But in the dunk contest, the best guys don't want to do it, which is weird.
I feel like an easy fix they could do though is just make it you have to be an all-star to be in the dunk contest. Because I think that's part of the issue that people are having. Like Mac McClung, like, you know, shout out to him. Like, he got game. Like, I remember when he was in high school. But at the end of the day, like, he's in the G League, bro. Like, come on. Like, all due respect to people in the G League. Like, they would give me buckets any day of the week, but still.
I think it should be the best dunkers. I mean, obviously, Mac McClung is a way better dunker than, you know, a lot of the guys. But, you know, if you say they have to be an all-star, Aaron Gordon was not an all-star that year. Zach LaVine was not an all-star that year.
That's true.
I mean, we would have gotten rid of some of the best dunk contests in history with that precedent. So I really do think there has to be a way of, you know, you got to be, people got to vote you in. And then once you have this pool of players that people want, you know, obviously you would vote in Zach LaVine, you'd vote in Aaron Gordon, Mac McClung would probably, you know, get in.
Sure.
You could vote in G Leaguers.
LeBron.
Like Jordan Kilgannon, you know who that is? He's like that guy on TikTok who's just the most unreal dunker in the world.
Really?
Get him in, you know?
Well, so that's what, I assume you watch like First Take ESPN. You know what Stephen A. be saying, right? How he wants to have like, not random people, but like civilians, pedestrians, like be in the dunk contest and have them be like sponsored and coached by players. I feel like that would be really interesting because then the other thing too that I think NBA players struggle with is there's no stakes. There's no like, I mean, for like a guy like Mac McClung, his, what's the word, like respect in the league and his, I don't know, nameness, like being known is kind of on the line. But for a guy like LeBron or for a guy like Jaylen Brown, if he wins the dunk contest or loses the dunk contest, nothing's really going to change for him. So if you bring on these civilians and these pedestrians to come in and you offer them real money, that might give up some real stakes. You might see guys doing some crazy stuff that we've never seen before.
Yeah, but then they're not all-stars. It kind of defeats the whole part.
But you just said they don't have to be all-stars, though.
I'm saying NBA, like all-stars.
Oh, so you want only NBA
It's
players.
like an NBA weekend.
So you don't like what Stephen A. Smith has to say.
No,
but it would still have the NBA players involved because they would be sponsoring them and coaching them. So you have like LeBron would have his guy.
Why not just make that its own show on CBS or something like that?
I mean, I'd watch.
Wrapping up the All-Star talk, we'll talk a little bit now about, you know, the season afterwards. Talk about, you know, a team that we think is going to go kind of all the way. What are your finals predictions so far in this one, or a team that you think is going to blossom?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really like the Clippers. The Clippers have really come along. I mean, I know they got the James Harden. And when James Harden first came to the team, like they kind of weren't doing too well. And now what have they won? Like they made it all the way up almost to the #1 seed. I like the Clippers. I've always liked Paul George. I've always been a big Paul George guy. I just think his bag is like, he has one of the deepest bags, I mean, let's be honest, in the NBA. And then like Kawhi, obviously, like, you know, Baby Jordan. Call him Baby Jordan, he's good too. but like in the East, maybe Boston. I mean, I know that's an easy answer, but I think Boston's good. Not Milwaukee. I heard Milwaukee was struggling though. What are your thoughts?
They've been struggling. They fired their head coach, and then they decided, you know what? Our head coach
and Doc Rivers ain't even. He worse.
Yeah,
Doc Rivers even worse.
Their head coach was 30-13. That was his record, and then they fired him. Yeah. And they brought in Doc Rivers, who's one of the biggest choke artists in the NBA history, coaching wise. I mean, he's blown through more 3-1 leads than anyone ever, literally. So that was an interesting decision. They've definitely dropped off since then. You know, they were 30-13. Now they're 35-21. So
they're 5-8 since they got Doc. And well, the thing is, what they were saying about the Bucks was like their issue before is that they couldn't play no defense. But now they're saying their defense is a little bit better. But now it's kind of putting it together on the opposite end. But at the same time, like anytime you have Giannis and Damian Lillard on the same team, scratch that. Anytime you have Giannis Antetokounmpo on your team, like you have to be a contender. You're in consideration at all times, especially in his prime.
I think that in the East, there's really 2 to 3 teams that strike me. I'll say 4 teams that strike me as contenders. You got to go Boston. I mean, that's obvious. They have the best record in the NBA. They are the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, for sure.
I go to New York. I think the Knicks are unreal this year. Jalen Brunson's playing unbelievable basketball. I mean, obviously Julius Randle's now hurt, but I mean we've seen your twin Dante DiVincenzo step up this year, and he's been unreal.
The Nunzio. Anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off. The Knicks.
Yeah, the Knicks are another team that I look at to be a contender in the East. I look at the Pacers. You know, they have Tyrese Halliburton. They have now Pascal Siakam. That's my guy. They have Benedict Mathurin. They have Miles Turner. That team is really good, really sound. well together. That's a team that if it's not this year, if it's not next year, it's going to be a few years down the line. They're going to be playing in the Eastern Conference Championship. They're going to be in the NBA Finals. That team is, we haven't seen them lose yet to a point where it's like, okay, they need something else, but they could be a missing piece away from being a top 2 team in the NBA. Obviously, they're on the cusp of like, I'd say like they're like a 6 right now in the NBA in terms of power rankings, in my opinion. Yeah. But then, I mean, obviously you have to look at the Bucks, and that's my 4th team I'd say in the East that I look at. The Sixers I'm kind of disregarding. Yeah, I'm kind of a little biased towards them. I really don't like the Sixers, but I mean, obviously the loss of Joel Embiid is going to really hurt your team and your season. They've dropped to 5th in the East, and that's hurt them. Losing Embiid, and it kind of shows your true colors of a team. If obviously Nick Nurse comes in this year and tries to build this program around. He turns Tyrese Maxey into an all-star. Yeah. And now this team loses your best player, so.
Well, here's the way I'll put that. I think what makes NBA teams so great is having players that have roles that they fit perfectly, that they don't have to outperform. You look at the Denver Nuggets last season. You have Nikola Jokic is the best player on the team. He would be the best player on probably, 29, maybe 20, maybe every single team in the NBA, he'd be the best player. Take a guy like Jamal Murray. He could play on 10, 15 different teams and be the best player, but he's on the Nuggets. He only has to be the second best player. He doesn't have the pressure. So when you have a guy like Tyrese Maxey, he's averaging 26, 27 points with Embiid, but when you take Embiid away and now we're starting a game plan for just Maxey and just him, is he able to kind of blossom the same way in that number 1 role?
Same thing with Jordan Poole this year.
Exactly.
He was on the Warriors.
When you're a 6-man on the Warriors with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, you can really do amazing in your role, but whenever you're the number 1 or number 2 option, it's really going to be the same. That's what makes good teams. You know what I mean? But I will say one thing about like the Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton. He's like one of the nicest players, and like, you know what I mean when I say nice. Like he has a deep bag. He gets like 10 assists a game, and he doesn't turn it over. That's like one of the most underrated things I think an NBA player can do is not only you're getting the assist, but it's like Russell Westbrook, right? Like, we know Russell Westbrook can put up triple doubles like crazy, but at the end of the day, he's finishing with 6, 7, 8 turnovers. But Tyrese Halliburton, he's not turning the ball over. He's got a deep bag.
For sure. And then you look at the West, and I think this year has elevated the West to be the best conference in the NBA. Even though they got smoked in the All-Star game, you look at the West, I mean, the teams in the West are unbelievable. The Minnesota Timberwolves I think, are one of my contenders to be the NBA champions this year. And then you look at the Thunder, again.
They're too young, though. They're too young.
That's what you can say, but remember what happened when the Thunder got there against LeBron?
Come on.
They were too young, and they still got there. They lost to LeBron.
We're talking about Kevin Durant being on that team, so he's one of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball.
But back then, he was averaging around the same that SGA is right now, and that whole team is, it's a very deep team, the Thunder, and I think they're probably my pick to go to the Eastern Conference Finals around with the Clippers and the Nuggets, right? Those are the top 4 teams. I just don't believe in the Suns yet,
Well,
obviously,
Bradley Beal's always hurt.
Beal is a great addition. You have KD, you have Booker, so you have an unbelievably shooting team that's great on paper. They're 33-22. It's a good record, but I just don't think this team is good enough to make the finals yet. Our MVP picks. Who would you say is your MVP front runner, and who do you think deserves it?
Like obviously Jokic, but who I'm gonna give some love to because they were talking about today on ESPN. I'll give some love to Jason Tatum. I think Jason Tatum is definitely underrated and overhated. I don't know about this whole narrative about him being bad in the finals, like how that. I'm not saying he wasn't bad in the finals. I don't know why people think this narrative is affecting him, but I'm gonna give Jason Tatum some love. He's the best player, the number 1 option on the best team in the league. And I'm sitting back and I'm trying to think. That used to be the whole thing with MVPs. Like you had to be the 1st or 2nd seed in your conference. When did that kind of start going away? Like why has that gone away now to where it's kind of like it seems like anyone can win MVP? It don't matter how good your team is.
You think of
it started with Russ. It started with Russ in 2017.
It means most valuable player, right? So you have to give that to the guy who is the most valuable player, who's the best player in the NBA. Well, I mean, we've seen it in every single sport. The best player doesn't have to be on the best team. In baseball, Mike Trout is
the best player doesn't always win.
The best player, but the Angels haven't won a playoff game in so many years.
Yeah, for sure.
But
the best player also doesn't always win, though. That's the thing too.
Exactly.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean,
LeBron would be sitting on how many MVPs right now? Like 21, 22.
LeBron's got 4 MVPs. He doesn't have a penny really.
Exactly.
He's gotten robbed so many times. When I look at MVP, though, obviously Nikola Jokic is the favorite. He's the betting favorite. He's probably going to end up winning with Embiid going away and getting hurt. But I don't understand how you can't give this to Luka Doncic. And listen, I'm not a Luka fan.
So you're a big Luka guy. It
No,
seems
I'm
like
not,
you are, though.
I'm not a Luka fan. You know, I have a lot of jerseys. I don't have a Luka jersey. I probably won't get a Luka jersey. I really don't like Luka. But when you look at his stats, I mean, he's averaging 35 points a game. No one else is doing that. No one else is really close to that. If Luka Doncic was to drop 34 points, 8 assists, and I think 10 rebounds or something like that, his averages would actually go down. That is the craziest stat I've ever seen. I mean, he's playing unreal. I think you also have to give your flowers to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy has reinvented the Oklahoma City Thunder to be a contender this year, and you know he's super young. I think SGA is again one of the best players in the NBA when it comes to scoring. Get the ball in his hands, he's going to figure it out. I think those are my 2 picks that I think deserve it the most. But if you had to make me pick a winner, you got to give it to Jokic.
Okay, and real quick before we wrap it up, we ended up here. Thoughts on the Lakers? Is he done winning championships? Is it time to start, focus on his Hollywood career?
LeBron said over All-Star Weekend that he doesn't really know yet what he's going to do with his career. He doesn't have a specific clock on when he's going to retire or how he's going to retire. He doesn't know if he's going to give that Kobe Bryant farewell tour.
He needs a farewell.
Where he goes to every city, or he's going to quote Tim Duncan it, where Tim Duncan just said, "All right, I'm done." After at the end of the season, was like, "Oh yeah, I'm done." By the way, I think when you look at LeBron James' career, in my opinion, the greatest player of all time in basketball.
In any sport,
you've got to give him a farewell.
He needs a farewell tour.
Yeah. I mean, I will make it a mission to get to one of those cities to see his farewell tour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Big Hit. I'm Nathan, alongside new member Josh over here. We're going to have a quick little Buccos talk. We wanted to talk as spring training is officially started. Full squad recorded as of today. Pitchers have been there about a week. And speaking of pitchers, I think today we want to kind of focus on the pitching situation. It's kind of an interesting debate here because they have 3 guys. Mitch Keller, they brought in Marco Gonzalez via trade. He had some injury issues, although had a great career with St. Louis and a little bit with Seattle, but ever since it's kind of been derailed a bit. He has some potential, though. And then Martin Perez comes in. I kind of like that one as well. But then there's 2 big question marks, the 4 and 5 starters. So you can either roll with the one of Roansy Contreras, Luis Ortiz, Quinn Priester, or are you going to bring in someone via free agency or trade, which has not happened yet and I think should. But yeah, it's a whole debate. Let's go over to you, Josh. Is there a certain guy you think this is their position to lose, or like any other guys? I didn't even mention Bailey Falter too, but like that's another option. But they have a lot they can do.
Yeah, for sure. So I think Mitch Keller, Oviedo will be a big player as well. I think Perez and Marco Gonzalez have their spots unlocked. I think that Bailey Falter could be a good candidate for that 5th spot. I think Roansy Contreras has a lot to prove as well. I saw a lot of news today since the full squad was reported that they were doing live ABs with Luis Ortiz, and I saw that they had obviously current guys going up against him, and he was working a lot on his sinker. I think if he bumps his fastball speed up a little bit, I think he'll be ready to go.
Yeah, you were saying before this. Said on Twitter about him facing Brian Reynolds, Jared Torello, who I actually really like too, and that's a topic for another day. And then O'Neal Cruz, of course, and he's a big key to this team succeeding in 2024. But with the pitching, I like the idea of Luis Ortiz just because I guess he's a very solid under-the-radar guy. If he can get a fastball figured out, which I think is every one of these pitchers' problems, him, Priester, and Roansy. And speaking of Roansy, I was so high on him in 2022, and then last year happened. It kind of just fell apart.
Right.
And I remember I was at Pirates Fest, and some dude asked the question in the open Q&A, basically like, hey, and they were preaching they spent all this money on pitching development. And the guy said in front of the president of the team, basically saying, so you preach you're spending all this money on the pitching development, then why did all these guys' velocity all go down?
Right.
And they just kind of stared at him like with the dumbest face, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, if you look at the stats they did, but like Fangraphs we're using here, they have him at a 4.75 ERA for Luis Ortiz. And I mean, last year he had a 4.78, and that's not that good. Well, I mean, he was a rookie kind of, but like, I want to see better. I think low 4s would be fine with him. But other than that, I mean, I want to see more from him. And I think with him, I think he's going to start in AAA. I think it makes more sense for him to be down there over guys like Contreras or Priester, of course. But I think they see a lot in Luis Ortiz that some of the fans don't.
Right.
And I understand it because that's the whole development thing. But the fans are kind of realizing Luis Ortiz might be in a little bit of trouble. Like Osvaldo Bido last year, he's now in the Oakland A's. That's another guy they saw a lot of potential in because he was like in their Dominican Republic system. He came all the way up. He was good at the start, but then completely fell off. So, I mean, he's one of those guys. You want to move on and go to maybe...
I still think, I just want to say, I think there's a lot of question marks with prospects too. I think we have a lot of promising guys, like we have Jared Jones, Quinn Priester, I think still, you said he has a lot to prove. He had a short stint up here last year, and I just don't think he got we didn't get to see his full potential in Pittsburgh. And obviously the big guy, Paul Skeens, I think he has just a deadly slider fastball combo that I think a lot of younger hitters aren't going to be able to react to. And I'm very excited for Paul Skeens to come up and see what he can bring.
Yeah, and you brought up, sticking with the prospects, I think there's a situation where if they don't add to the rotation via free agency, I've seen like Domingo Germán interested, they want to, it makes sense, I guess. I know there's a lot of fiasco with bringing him in, but I mean, they need pitchers, so I guess it makes sense there. Or they don't bring in a trade. They've been linked to like Edward Cabrera for the last week. It hasn't happened since. I want it to happen because it makes a lot of sense, because if they were to get him, he's under contract till 2028. They wouldn't have to pay him. I think he's out of options though, but they wouldn't have to pay him. He has a lot of upside to him, but at the same time, can they develop him? Because they struggle with developing these guys. But sticking with the prospects, I like the idea of having Paul Skeens day one. It's not going to happen, sadly, unless like he would have to go like perfect game. Even if he had a perfect game in spring training, they would not let him start in the major leagues. But I really like Jared Jones. He's a guy here on Fangraphs, 4.63 projected ERA. Speaking of like Fangraphs, you don't have to trust it or anything. It's just their projections with their statistics and stuff. But I like him. He kind of took the AAA and like AA by storm last year. He was one of those prospects you did not expect to be good, and he's killing it right now. Other prospects I'm liking that are going to be in AA, Bubba Chandler, Anthony Solometo. I like them as well. I think they like Solometo a lot. Out of all them, a lot of fans like Bubba Chandler. It's funny about him. He turned down quarterback at Clemson to come pitch for the Pirates, which I was like, you know what? That's a great commitment right there to come to the Pittsburgh Pirates. But like, I think has a lot of potential. And he was a two-way coming out of the draft. I think it was shortstop and pitcher. But last season they were like, okay, we're just going to let you pitch. And he's found something, and it's his talent right now. He's just going to be that pitcher. They at least need one or two of these guys to click though, because that's key.
Yeah, I like what you said there right at the end about how we absolutely need one or two to click. I think we have a serious chance of maybe not a World Series. I don't think that. I mean, it's nice to hope. But,
yeah.
But I think a wild card spot is not outlandish here, and I think for sure we need one or two of these young guys to step up and be big. And again, I really like Solometo. Bubba Chandler, again, would be a good guy. And I don't know much about Jared Jones, like his repertoire, what he has, but I mean, anything will help here. We're Pittsburgh Pirates, so.
And here's the thing about Paul Skeens is what I want to bring up too. They're definitely going to start him in AAA, and they have him here on Fangraphs at a projected 11 games started, which I would hope so. They're all going to be starts and hopefully not relief. Right. But they have him at a 4.57 ERA. I mean, as a rookie, I understand. I don't think it's going to be that high. I think he has some talent there, and they have him a 70 out of 70 graded fastball, which that's the best thing he can do. But his other pitches are what worries me here, especially his command. They have him at a 35 out of 55, and with that fastball, he can throw about 102. I think he hit 106 in LSU twice or whatever. The only guy to do that, of course, is Hunter Green of the Cincinnati Reds during the MLB. That's the only MLB arm to actually do that, which is very crazy that a college arm is putting up that much. The thing about Skeens that worries me, though, is will he need Tommy John? Because we saw he's been the highest-rated pitching prospect since Steven Strasburg. And Steven Strasburg's now out of the league because he has some nerve issues with his arm. And that can be an issue. I think he had Tommy John as well a little bit. But, like, all these guys end up getting Tommy John. The Pirates have two guys currently getting Tommy John, and Johan Oviedo out for the whole year. Andy Rodriguez, huge for the catching department, out for the whole year. Brubaker had it last year, and he's still out this year. And then Mike Burrows, another prospect we haven't even talked about, he was soaring up the ranks, but then he had Tommy John. So I'm wondering how he comes back from that. But I really hope that they can figure out Paul Skeens. I hope they do not ruin him. He's the most MLB-ready prospect, I would say, pitching-wise in the whole league. I know other people say, oh, there's other guys like Jackson Holiday, but he's a shortstop. He's younger than Paul Skeens, but he's ready for the MLB. I think he's going to be up day one maybe with the Orioles possibly. But Paul Skeens, I think if they don't get another pitcher in free agency or trade, hypothetically, if they want to get fans in here, have him up day one. Like, there's nothing to lose. Right. The only thing I think you would have to do is if he wins Rookie of the Year, he gets an incentive or something like that, or he loses a year of eligibility, I think. That's the only risk. Do I think he's going to win Rookie of the Year with the way the Pirates develop pitchers? I don't think they have to worry about that. I think there's other guys, like they brought in Yamamoto on the Dodgers. I think he's number one. Jung-Hoo Lee on the Giants. They're going to give these guys coming from Japan and Korea a lot of these votes. So I don't think they have to really worry about that whole situation. But yeah, so is there another guy you want to talk about?
I mean, I could bounce off Paul Skeens all day. I think for sure that the arm could be an issue. I had Tommy John myself in high school, and it is a long recovery, and I didn't throw nearly as hard as him. So I can only imagine the time and energy that you have to put in that recovery. But I do think that Tommy John could be an impending, struggle for him because he started out at Air Force before he went to LSU, and he wasn't a pitcher there. So he hit and he played infield there before he realized he had the pitching talent that he did. Mm-hmm. So I think it could catch up to him, but again.
Yeah. I mean, you got to hope for the best because
right.
He's definitely the answer. I think their GM, Ben Cherington, is going to be in a lot of trouble if, like, say, Henry Davis doesn't work out. Gonzalez is kind of looking like it might not work out, a lot of strikeout issues. If Paul Skeens doesn't work out and nothing continues to happen, I think he's gone. This is year 5 of the rebuild. He's running out of time. That's all I'm going to say. I know he just extended Derek Shelton. They love Derek Shelton as their manager. I think he's slowly going to run out of time, too, because hypothetically, if they make the playoffs, it's going to determine, like, how does he manage down the stretch. They had a great March, April, right. May. Fell apart in June, July when it matters the most. And the GM made no moves to call up people. The Reds did everything in their mind to call everyone up when they were hot. They almost made the playoffs. Then the Pirates got hot again. I think they had a winning record over August and September, mm-hmm. and that's usually playoff time. So if they don't fall apart, if they can bring in pitchers, and I want to do this before we run out of time here, before we go. Who is the opening day 5-man rotation? What do you think happens? You could say if they bring in someone free agency, you don't have to say who it is. I'll let you go first. So who's your 5?
I think if we're being realistic here, I think we got to have Mitch Keller. Obviously, we have Marco Gonzalez, Martin Perez. Those 3 they're gonna be solid. And then again, the 2 question marks. I think to be realistic, Bailey Falter's probably our 5, and then I could see Luis Ortiz, Ronzi Contreras, but I would probably go with Luis Ortiz for the 4th spot.
I actually really like that one. For my rotation, if I have a 5-man rotation, I am going to go with, I think Mitch Keller's easy number 1. He's their guy. If Oviedo was healthy, he's number 2. He had a great year. But number 2, I think they're going to roll with Martin Perez. Number 3, I'm going to go crazy. They bring in a free agent. They're linked to all these guys. I think it's going to be Domingo Germán just because, I don't know if you saw his Instagram story. He had that, like, we're back, and then black and yellow, and it since got deleted because everyone on, like, social media was like, oh, no, we're bringing him in. I think they are bringing him in. I think that he's the emergency option. I think it's going to be him or like a Noah Syndergaard. I don't really want Noah Syndergaard, but I think it's going to be him. So I'm going to say free agent at number 3. 4, I'm going to go Marco Gonzalez just because he's there. Number 5, I want it to be Priester, but I think they like Ortiz. I think they're going to let Priester go back to AAA, figure some stuff out, or if anything, put him in the bullpen. I think at most he might be a bullpen arm. Mm-hmm. I think Contreras, he's running out of time too. Part of me thinks they'll start with him, but I think I'm going to give it to Luis Ortiz. But yeah, we are out of time today. Thank you all for watching this episode. I've been Nathan. That's Josh over there talking some Buccos, and we will see you all next time. Have a good day.